kick things off. 3 minutes. There we go. That's the magical sound. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's session in which we will discuss outbound signals: what, when, why, and how, essentially. Because let's be honest, if you open up your LinkedIn feed, you will see so many people sharing guides, but you don't know who to trust and who to follow. So that's the mystery that we are going to unravel and solve today. And joining with me today, it's obviously Bill. And well, I'm sorry, how can I pronounce the name properly? This is so
Kaustubh.
unprofessional. Kaustubh.
Kaustubh.
Again, Kaustubh joining us from today with us from Zapmail, and we will cover basically the best uses and the best case scenarios about the signals. For the ones who don't know me, my name is Ilija, and I'm the CRO at HeyReach. I mean, if you don't know what's HeyReach, well, it's a LinkedIn automation tool pacing pretty nicely on the market these days, and I'm going to stop there without really being too biased. I'm going to let Bill to do a quick intro, and we can proceed to Kaustubh then.
Yeah, I'm the founder and CEO of SalesCaptain. We're the good HeyReach partners. Also work with Zapmail, work with Clay. That's all I'm going to say. We're building go-to-market, and we've been running Outbound since 2021. So we've been in the space for quite a while, and super excited about signals and orchestration in GTM in 2026 because it does represent a phenomenal shift in terms of how we leverage the data that we have available and how can we be more efficient as businesses.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why we wanted not just to have people coming from various tools to tell you about how to best utilize their tool, but actual power user and a GTM and a proper GTM engineer. Basically, in my opinion, Bill, you guys are basically in the 0.01% worldwide. Pleasure to have you here. Kaustubh, your turn. Tell us about Zapmail.
Thank you so much, Ilya. Thank you so much, Bill. It's a pleasure to share this panel with you guys. Both of you are, masters in your field. And hi, guys. This is Kaustubh. I lead product and growth at Zapmail. If you don't know about Zapmail, Zapmail is a cold email infrastructure automation platform. We help you buy mailboxes and domains in bulk, and we take care of all the infrastructure and deliverability requirements. We've been there for almost 1.5 years now. I can probably say the top infrastructure platform which is out there. So really looking forward to this chat with Bill and Ilya and talk about how we can leverage signals, grow outbound, inbound led outbound, and what's happening with the top agencies out there. Over to you.
Love
Yeah.
it.
And just to get started a little bit, I'd love to get a sense of where everyone stands in terms of outbound. If you guys want to share in the chat, if you're running email outreach, LinkedIn outreach, combination, cold calling, WhatsApp, like what are the main channels for outbound and go-to-market that you're currently, maybe ads as well? What are some of the channels that you're using? And maybe if you want to add some of the challenges you're facing right now, so we can make it as tidy and
Practical as possible.
Perfect, and practical as possible. Someone's saying the chat is disabled. Someone is asking Q&A.
Yes, about that. Chat may be disabled, but you guys feel free to share inside of the Q&A section, and we will answer.
Can you try now? Yeah, I think that now it's enabled.
Cool. Okay, but either way, anyone has any questions, feel free to pop them into the Q&A section, and we will answer them live throughout this meeting. By the way, I saw Leonardo over there. Hey, buddy, long time no see. Thank you for joining. Cool, guys. Without being too theoretical about things, I'm going to let Bill take the stand over here and tell us, well, essentially, hey, Bill, what are you doing so amazingly well for people these days and obviously, what are the key differentiators when it comes to modern day GTM engineering and outbound signals? Floor is yours.
You said without being theoretical, and I'm going to be fully theoretical, but hopefully there's some actual nuggets of like real things we can take away, because it really helps me think like this. Hope everyone can see the slides.
Yeah.
So I think I was reflecting quite a bit in terms of what we're going to be discussing today, not just for the framing for the webinar, but actually like deep soul searching, like what are the two main things that we're seeing arise from the use of AI, from the state of where things are, go-to-market, outbound, paid ads, etc. when it comes to B2B. And I think it's two very specific things, not necessarily everyone's talking about. The first one is more volume has mostly meant more spam. more volume because of AI, and more volume because obviously modern go-to-market tools, including Zapmail, including Clay, including HeyReach, make it easier to kind of reach out to larger audiences, set up more inboxes than ever, have perfect deliverability, and this is definitely something I'm excited about. So I think more volume has meant more spam. Go-to-market has become noisier. There's more channels than ever before that we can all leverage really cheaply. It's no longer an expensive game. Yet, if we look at our actual stats, pipeline performance is down. Customer acquisition costs are up. So I think like that's the first thing to kind of ponder a little bit. Like, yeah, we have AI, but besides making outbound a little bit more expensive, let's say we can solve the cost. The other thing is there's more spam. And then the second thing, and I think this becomes a bit more obvious once you've been running outbound and go to market the modern way using AI, and especially a little bit more at scale. And we're seeing that because with SalesCaptain, we serve more than 50 different kind of projects and types of campaigns at the same time. Is that go-to-market execution and orchestration becomes chaotic when you add in AI. And I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that, because let's leave aside the part that I can detect the signal, use it. Most companies have no idea even which stage in the funnel their accounts are actually in. Like they'll just leverage signals to reach out. Marketing might try and scale campaigns, either using some sort of AI, typically some AI slop copy. Sales, because someone has set up the signals, receives an overwhelming number of signals and notifications and Slack DMs and Slack channel messages. This person visited this page, this person interacted with this person did that. But there's kind of no coordination in between them. And Ops obviously doesn't know what KPIs to track. So it creates a little bit of a mess and a chaos, which in theory shouldn't, or we would have wanted to avoid. But because of the amount of data that we have and the fact that data is now real time, you're no longer just reaching out to a specific industry category within LinkedIn. You're reaching out to people who are taking activities and commenting on posts, which happens real time, who join webinars, people who visit your website, and all of that happens in real time. So the fact that this element has been added and the fact that we have more data than ever before creates a lot of chaos. And not to mention the fact that for most B2B SaaS companies, 20% of their market represents most likely 70% plus of potential revenue, but they rarely prioritize those accounts, because especially if you're targeting mid-market or slightly larger companies, you have to actively go after the companies that matter to you, unless you're in a more low-ticket kind of space where your time is big enough, you don't necessarily care about that. So especially as you're scaling, but also in like most cases, we're seeing AI and the use of modern go-to-market tools create more chaos and kind of leaving people not necessarily knowing like who's managing this, who's taking over control. Is marketing running outbound? Is sales not running outbound? Is it go-to-market team? Does it live inside of sales? Does it live inside of marketing? Is it a different department? And it's not just a question of like, oh, where does go-to-market fall under? It's also like, who's implementing it? Who's in charge of it? Who's managing the new tools, the infrastructure, the know-how, and the execution across all different channels?
I love it how you've laid it all out. And basically, I love the image of old school GTM. And for some people, GTM is something that is the brandest in the newest environment that they have heard of. But exactly on point, like you basically need a person who will connect marketing activities to sales activities, and you need a person who will basically track pure outbound of people who never heard of it. Are those two people GTM engineers, or have they created GTM engineering environments? Yes, they have. But then again, the real pain point over there is who owns what, and that's the key pretty much to every
Exactly. And how is it orchestrated across the organization? So obviously the goal would be having orchestrated signal first go to market. Like that's it. Like that's the dream. If I was thinking, what is the ideal outcome? What can we instill in people's minds? What do we want them to leave? And kind of like keep maybe one thing, that would be that. Being able to leverage signals and also orchestrate them across their entire organization, because signals can be, as you can see in the images as well, anything from someone signed up for a free trial. It was a free account, and it ended up being, OpenAI, because someone signed up with a Gmail address. And then they churned because we didn't, manage that. We didn't realize it's a big account. We didn't follow up. And it can also be someone in our CRM got reactivated or started visiting our website again. So the goal is how do we align our marketing and sales teams and ops and use the best data when the time is right? And for me, the first question is always, how is this all possible? Why is it available now? We understand in theory, yeah, Bill's talking about it, Ilija is talking about it, we're all discussing it, yeah, amazing. How and why is this all possible? For me, it came down to an interesting realization, which I think kind of starts untangling the web of where we are at today, which is what I call the B2B data renaissance. Using AI and modern go-to-market tools, we now have the ability to track almost every single signal across the entire buyer's journey or funnel, if you want, and that can happen in real time. And all of that information, we can feed it on Slack, we can feed it on our CRM, we can run outbound campaigns, we can send emails, we can send LinkedIn messages. And this is also exactly where things start to break, because you have the signals, that's one thing. How do you orchestrate them? How do you make sure you're using the right channel, which is also what we're going to talk about today, and also that you're doing the right activity and engaging the right team. Along with it, we also had this clear realization at SalesCaptain that data is the new creative, meaning in the old kind of world, the old kind of way, the lever you had was obviously humans' time, BDs, who would do the data kind of qualification and classification manually. And most of the optimization was, can we create better copy? Can we test more messaging, different subject lines? We obviously didn't have AI back then. Same messages being sent to most accounts, and we compensated for the lack of relevance or persuasion by doing more volume. The big shift and what we're discussing today is we can now see buyer behavior in real time. We can detect intent before people even become aware of what's going on. We can track change in account status in buyer behavior in real time. And all of that can happen dynamically, as I said, in real time. It's not data that was scraped 6 months ago or six years ago. So essentially the shift is signals are now deciding whom we're engaging with, why we're engaging with them, when, and also how. And the channel is obviously still there because it's part of the strategy, but it's there as an execution mechanism to the go-to-market machine. And we're going to be talking about how it kind of fits. And because of that, timing and targeting beats kind of the best kind of copy. And that also scales. The way I'm typically talking about it is if you're trying to sell a fridge to someone and the first person you try to sell the fridge to is an Eskimo and the second person is someone in the desert, middle of the desert, holding an ice cream cone, and you know because of the intent data, let's say, that the ice cream is melting, and you say fridge, $500, you can try the exact same thing for both people. The person that has the intent and the right targeting is going to buy, no questions asked, even if your copy is bad. So it kind of diminishes. It doesn't necessarily mean that, bad copy will make it, or bad AI copy will kind of be functional or even desired, but it means that the signals themselves have become one of the most important values or things we care about when it comes to B2B. So being able to orchestrate the signals and identify how they fit with each other is kind of like literally the currency of 2026.
Absolutely, Bill. I cannot argue with that. You're 100% on top. Anyone listening, guys, listen. Even if you hit the most relevant audience with the most generic copy ever, it will outperform the hyper-personalized message to a non-relevant audience. So let that sink in a little bit. So that's why the signals play the biggest part in modern day GTM engineering and outbound altogether. Imagine, if you want to draw a parallel, how would you know Google, how does Google know which ad to show you? It's because based on your past searches. Now the signals are essentially this is what this person essentially is looking for, or in this state of the company they are in. So this type of solution, product or service would make sense for them. So But then again, the problem is, what if you have too many of those? And since being new technology and new environment to work with, this is where the crowded space will essentially happen. And don't even get me started on which channel and the distribution of the proposition will happen. Carry on, Bill. I think that we are on
Yeah,
point here.
and that kind of got me thinking with regards to like, okay, what does the framework look like? Like, we all know what signals are. I'm not going to talk about it, but how are we able to identify them? Because I can give you lists of like ideas forever, but it doesn't give us a way to go and touch any brand and be able to identify these are the signals, and then be able to say, okay, these have to be the messages, and these are then the channels that we're using. So what we came up with is what I call the B2B go-to-market funnel. Pretty much having 3 different layers, or you can think of them as stages in the funnel that have to do with signals. The first one is AI-led outbound, pretty much broad ICP outreach where signals are being used on top of the ICP to add relevance. You're starting from the ICP and then you're layering in signals on top. The second one is intent signals, where you've detected the signal, you verify that they belong to your ICP, and then you reach out. And that can also include custom targeting as well, meaning someone who attended a conference or a webinar. And then inbound-led outbound, meaning someone who has interacted with your brand, whether it's someone in your CRM, someone interacting with your LinkedIn content or your website, who are problem aware. They know what problem you solve. Solution aware, they know how you solve the problem. Let's say someone at HeyReach's website probably knows that LinkedIn outreach, there's a better way to do it, that tools allow you to automate the process, and HeyReach is one of the coolest brands that exist out there. So bottom of the funnel people have the benefit that even though it's the smallest part, people who are both problem solution and brand aware are the smallest part of anyone's market, but they're the most critical kind of target audience we need to be touching on. So we kind of made this split, which also kind of aligns with first-party data, meaning our own data and things we control, which is inbound-led outbound. Intent signals in general, things that more broadly are available to us, hiring, people changing jobs, competitors, followers. And then AI-led outbound, which is, you scrape Apollo, you use some info data, you scrape, well, you can't scrape, but you get access to LinkedIn Sales Nav data, and then you apply several kind of AI enrichments. So that's kind of how we think about it. And this also goes really well with what we're going to be talking about next, which is how do we funnel each of those buckets of prospects into different parts of the organization and also into different channels when we're executing our go-to-market strategy.
Absolutely. I mean, we can continue, but before we jump into it, and obviously we have to be time aware over here. Guys, you will have signals that will yield a lot of results and a lot of prospects in an evergreen type of environment. And obviously LinkedIn has its own limitations in terms of which can you reach. But on the other end, some prospects actually require that special attention and that brand representation to really happen. So that's why it's clear to understand like which stage and which funnel, which signal to be used, and how to transform this into an actual orchestration on an outbound campaign.
Exactly. And I mean, leveraging signals is super simple. Putting together this slide wasn't simple, but I promise it's literally 3 to 4 steps. The first step is identify the signal. What do we want to track? And we'll give plenty of examples. Let's say we want to target website visitors. Awesome. We want to target people who signed up for a free trial within our product. Awesome. The first one is detect the signal, collect the data. The second one is filter against your ICP. Not everyone who visits your website is going to be your ICP, or you want to reach out to them. You don't want to reach out to your competitors, people who are in niches you can't serve, etc., etc. The third step could be some advanced logic and routing, optional. Some people prefer kind of more advanced tools. And then the last step is, how do we act on the data? How do we act on the signal? Do we send it to our AEs on HubSpot to do manual outreach? Could be one option, or to call the prospects. Do we send it inside of HeyReach and then run a LinkedIn campaign? Do we send it on Slack as a notification? Do we leverage email in order to reach out to a bulk kind of audience, because the signal has a lot of prospects that are kind of triggering it? So that's kind of like the basic kind of model. This is how to think about it. The big unlock comes when because signals, and I'm going to do my favorite activity. if you have the data, if it's someone in your CRM, old client, etc., someone interacting with you, amazing. The signal is straightforward. If it's someone that's kind of changing jobs, etc., you can leverage Clay. You can leverage a bunch of other tools that allow you to detect signals. The biggest lever is, what do we do with prospects that belong to a broader ICP that don't necessarily, we can't start from a signal, but we can start from an audience, whether that audience is people who attended a specific event, people who are part of a conference, maybe people who are part of a community. We know that there is some intent because someone who is in, let's say, the HeyReach go-to-market community cares about go-to-market, they care about the latest tools. We don't necessarily know that they're interested in buying something right now, but we know that they care about it. But it could be our competitors, it could be other companies we don't want to reach out to, it could be other software providers. So the big unlock we had at SalesCaptain was when we realized we can actually use signals on top of ICPs we've already defined. Pretty much the process is exactly the same. The only difference is you start by scraping a large audience. Again, the data can come from anywhere. And then on top of it, you apply any of the signals you would otherwise apply, and you leverage those signals to create more personalized messaging that then goes out to the people you're reaching out to. And signals can mean unique insights for every company, can mean building even custom data sets or things that you can leverage within your email, custom calculators, and a lot of other things that make it really enticing and spicy. Few more things, I guess. So AI-led outbound, we've already touched on that. I'm a big tools guy, so I've nerded out and I've added a bunch of different tools that people can leverage when they're doing broader ICP outreach. For example, you can target lookalike companies if you have a list of clients. This is hot, especially for agencies. You can use Awesome.io, PandaMatch, Clay, Discolike as well to get a list of similar companies. And this is also amazing if you have a case study from a specific type of company. You can find all the similar companies in that space. At one point, we had a client who ditched us, and well, I'm kidding, we didn't do that, but we seriously considered scraping every other company in their field and being like, hey guys, like, we know the audience, we've targeted it before, we know kind of what results to expect, we know the messaging, do you want us to run campaigns for you? And this is a really easy and straightforward way to get clients. There is no intent in that sense, but this is a super targeted audience. Or the secret, while it's still out there, is you can scrape anyone's LinkedIn followers. I'm going to leave the tools on the side for that. And you can reach out to them. So you can monitor, let's say, your competitors or complementary tools or other players in your space, maybe news organizations as well. Anyone who follows them, you scrape the list and you reach out. Intent signals, I think we touched on that. It's the most obvious one. There's things from job openings to company news, people who mention specific topics on LinkedIn, on Reddit, on all different communities, funding events, etc., etc. There's no shortage of tools, which includes, by the way, second and third party signals and kind of ecosystem data. You can track, for example, who's visiting pages with specific tools breakdowns on Capterra, on G2 and platforms like that. And then the last one, which is our own data, this is AI-led outbound, is first-party signals, like people using our product, visiting our website, signing up for our newsletter, attending an event, and even ABM monitoring. Let's say having a list of high importance accounts that we're actively monitoring for a bunch of different signals, and whenever something gets triggered, we then automatically reach out. And all of that obviously, informs specific flows. So I mentioned broad ICP outreach in the beginning. You identify an ICP, could be doctors in your space. You cluster them further. You segment them into sub niches. Maybe you only want dentists that have more than one practices, let's say. You do that at scale. You create different buckets of messaging, and then you reach out via email because this is a large audience. Then you DM LinkedIn event attendees because you can scrape people who attend specific events. You can use Clay to filter out anyone who doesn't match your ICP. And then you can reach out directly on LinkedIn using HeyReach. Another one could be website visitor identification. Maybe you want to reach out via both email and HeyReach or a platform like that. You can use Lemlist or Instantly or anything like that for the second part for email. and then maybe LinkedIn harvesting, like people who engage with your content or other people's content, scraping that data, classifying them, checking that they're not your competitors or your mom, just saying, Bill, amazing post, and then sending them DMs on LinkedIn, and if you want, also emailing them as well. Which kind of, and I guess kind of a really nice place to think about is intent signals are great, but which channel? So we have the signals. We've started discussing how to identify them, how to build them out, how to leverage them. And then the next question is, okay, how do we choose which channels to use for every signal? And how do we prioritize email? How do we prioritize LinkedIn in order to be the most cost efficient and also effective with our outreach?
Absolutely. Bill, thank you for sharing that. It was an amazing presentation and for covering all the signals that are out there. Guys, before we jump into the channels and the best utilization of the channels, this is something that I'm going to take a step back. If you're not aware which signal to use, ask yourself a very simple question. From the past 3 clients that I've closed, in which state were they? Were they hiring? Were they onboarding? Were they losing money? Were they getting too much money? Were they scaling? So basically, just do a little bit of signal due diligence from the customer base or the people you've worked with just to discover in which state were they. And even if you're not sure, just reach out to that person and basically say, hey, why did you hire me in the first place? Like, what state of the company were you in? Based on that, then you just multiply that across various tools and various channels. Bill shared a very nice list, in my opinion. So basically scale on the tools, invest in the tools, and start creating your lead list and your evergreen campaigns. To Bill's point.
That's a really good point, because as you mentioned, and I want to double down on that, is a lot of clients ask us like, oh, which signals to use? Like, is hiring a good one? And I'm like, we don't necessarily know, but you can ask your existing clients why they hired you, why they decided to work with you, and what was going on in their business when that happened. We identified with SalesCaptain, for example, that the company would have changed the chief revenue officer within the last 6 months. Like, it was something that wasn't obvious when we signed one client, second, third, but we now have data from past 4 years. And it became really obvious that whenever a shift like that happens or a new head of revenue, we know that about 6 months later, between 1 and 6 months when that happens, that's a really good signal for us. And then the secret key, which is the other thing, is you have to test a lot of signals.
Yeah, and signals are variables, like they will change over time, new will pop up, and all existing ones have to be closed. Don't worry about that part. Start playing, start iterating, or hire someone who has the experience to actually get you there faster. Now, to the next point is, let's say we've spent so much money, we've did personalization. No personalization, data costs money, let's be honest, all. Like, that's probably the most important part in every modern day outbound. Now, the next question is, what if I got all of this, but I'm not hitting the right inbox? Because some signals will yield thousands and thousands of people, and you need that message to be read, essentially. Now, even though LinkedIn doesn't have that problem, but has different sorts of problem, and that's what I'm going to try to educate you on this workshop, I would like to invite Kaustubh over here to tell us about, well, Zapmail. How do you guys ensure that all of the data provided ends up into the primary inbox?
Thank you so much, Ilija. Bill, I mean, it was a great session on signals. I think most important part is how quickly do you act on these signals? I mean, once you have all the data, you cannot let that sit on your Slack DMs or on the platform where you've collected these signals or the clay table. You have to act on it. And second, which channel to prioritize, as Bill mentioned. So there are some signals which are more generic. Volume plays an important role because it's cheaper at scale. That is where email, when it comes to probably hiring, fundraising, or people switching jobs, or even website visitors, for example. So when you have a lot of people visiting your website, email becomes a cheaper alternative, and it helps you do outreach at scale. So for more generic signals, email should be used. Of course, you need to have multi-platform touch points. I mean, email, LinkedIn, calls, that is always there. But to increase your top of the funnel, it's easy. The gatekeepers are easy to bypass. And when you talk about infrastructure specifically, There are three things which become super important. One is your identity. So identity is how do you set up your domains and mailboxes. One, stay away from primary. Never use your primary domain for outreach. You need to have multiple secondary domains. Have three mailboxes per domain. Um, Second is reputation. Reputation involves one, setting up of proper DNS records. If your DNS records are messed up, no matter how good the copy is, even if the signals are correct, you will never end up in the primary. So you need to ensure that all the DNS records, all the configurations are properly done. One thing which is not very much out there, it also depends on the platform you're purchasing your domains from. There are certain registrars which don't have the best of DNS services out there. So chances of ending up in a blacklist initially when you set up your domains is quite high. There are certain blacklists which specifically target new domains and mailboxes. You want to stay away from them. Then once your initial setup is done, you have domains, you have mailboxes, it becomes crucial you warm it up. And this is where the third part comes in, which is behavior. So identity, reputation, and behavior. For behavior, it's important you make it look as human as possible. I mean, now that Gmail, Microsoft, all these ESPs have AI integrated, the more bot-like activity it'll look like, more chances are that your reputation would not sustain for a longer time. So you want to make it look like as human as possible. We usually recommend, and this is what you've seen top agencies follow as well. You warm up initially for 3 to 4 weeks. There's no campaign activity at all. Then you slowly start ramping up your campaigns. So warm up and ramp up are two different terms here. Warm up is you just let them warm up. There are multiple tools which can help you with this. Keep it somewhere between 25 to 35 with 60 to 70% reply rates, so that, because that is how normally we deal with our mailboxes as well. We have both inbound and outbound. We interact on weekends as well, and it should be spread throughout the day. If there are spikes, if there are sudden bursts, it'll impact your reputation in a negative way. Then
Nice.
once you, yeah.
No, go on. I believe the thing that everyone should be aware of is that when it comes to email, the infrastructure plays the most important part. And that's why Kaustubh is obviously pointing out all of these things, because there are specific guidelines that you have to follow or find a reputable partner that can help you get that initiative. But yes, please loop us in, Kaustubh.
And then it's also the type of mailboxes as well. It's like whether you're using Google custom SMTP, that also plays Microsoft as well, especially if you're targeting more enterprise or smaller companies or startups. That plays a really big role in deliverability.
Definitely. I mean, it's very important for you to understand your audience. If you're talking about, so there are three options which is widely available out there: Google, Microsoft, and SMTP. Google and Microsoft, they tend to perform better because the leads that you're reaching out to, they are essentially either on Google or Microsoft. I'm assuming majority of audience today would have joined using either a Google Workspace or a Gmail or an Outlook mailbox. So that is where your audience is. And what we have typically seen is that when you reach out to enterprises, they have a Microsoft heavy setup. If you talk about startups, new age companies, they are primarily on Google Workspace. And I think this becomes very easy for you to understand as well. I think there are clay tables. You can check the MX records of your leads, and you can determine what sort of infrastructure you want to go with. Should it be Google heavy, Microsoft heavy? And ESP matching definitely helps a lot. Google to Google, Microsoft to Microsoft. We've seen users report almost 60-70% better reply rates if you are using ESP matching. So it becomes very crucial at scale, because you don't know that one lead which you might have missed out on could be your next biggest account. So this is about ESPs, and try to keep the email. I'll talk about email volumes next. Earlier, people used to have this spray and pray method. Now, cold outreach driven, but you want to keep your mailboxes and domains have a longer lifetime. You don't want them to burn out easily. You don't want to do very high volumes. Keep it between 15 and 20. Keep the warm up enabled at all times. recently agencies have been sending almost 1:2 ratio. Like you send one campaign email, and for every campaign email, you're sending two warm-up emails. So this ensures that overall reply rates are managed. And then, of course, no links, no tracking. Reply rates are your only North Star. No matter, because Apple and all these ESPs, they have open tracking by default. So before your email is read by your lead, the ESPs filter them out. So you have to ensure that you're following all the best practices, because no matter how good the setup is, no matter how good the signal is, if you end up in the spam folder, you're just hoping that that person checks out their spam and get back to you. It's all about getting more eyeballs landing in the primary, and ensuring that you can eventually convert these leads using multi-channel steps. You can have LinkedIn, you can do calling, you need to have multiple touch points there.
Absolutely. We will get to the touch points in a sense on a very high end, guys. Why we are seeing high list build-up process requires email. It's because let's say that you have a signal that it's giving you 10,000 leads per month. In order to execute those on LinkedIn, which we're going to chat about in a second, you will need 16 LinkedIn accounts. Now, unless you have 16 sales representatives in your company or 16 people willing to borrow their account for you to execute on outbound, now you have a real problem, because the people which were interested at that given time doesn't mean that they will be interested 6 months from now. So you need to act fast. The fastest way to act is essentially reach them on email. And the biggest mistake that you can make over there is obviously end up in spam or being caught by the spam filters on a dumb mistake that you've did throughout the setup process. Cool. Kaustubh, do you think like we should cover anything else on the email side of things?
I think from an infrastructure perspective, I've tried to cover as much as I can in a short span of time. Just one thing,
Nice.
guys, I would talk a little bit on the copy front as well. The more relevant it is, no matter how much good personalization your AI has done, if the reader can resonate with the problem, they will get back to you.
Yeah.
I'm sure we all must get thousands of cold emails, and the ones which we tend to reply to are the ones which we can relate with. So ensure that you are on point there, and have spin tags, because if you're sending the same copy to even 50 recipients today, 51st will end up in spam, because Google and Microsoft are very strictly working against these spam filters. If they detect any bot activity, your entire funnel or your entire pipeline built on emails can wipe off. So it's just, if you follow these few small practices, uh, no one can ever come to you and say that cold emailing is dead or outbound is dead, because it has just evolved to a extent where at least spammers are out of the inbox. So we have more attention span of the reader, and we can make the most out of it. I think how we can incorporate multiple touch points, where does LinkedIn come in? What sort of signals or intent data should you prioritize when you're doing a LinkedIn outbound? Probably Ilija can guide us better on that.
Oh no, Bill will guide us on that one because he is the expert combining the multiple channels. But before we get to that part, whole point being, guys, is that, well, obviously, I mean, let me tell you from a recipient perspective. We all talk about from a sender perspective, but I'm a recipient perspective because obviously I'm serving as a CRO at a SaaS tool that essentially you can imagine how many messages do I get
audience.
in my
Yeah.
I'm the
Imagine
prime audience for tools, for agencies, for stuff like that. So my inbox gets hit daily to around 45 to 50 emails per day. And I get emails such as link exchanges for SEO. I mean, come on, like obviously you have to do better. You can do as much as personalization. You can pretty much find out like what's my daughter's name and mention that in your copy, but it's still not going to be relevant because I don't do SEO. Like there are people who actually do that, obviously. I get hit with, you all get those emails. Hey, I saw your LinkedIn post and you've talked about five words in it, but has no relevance to the next thing that you're about to say. So that's a misusage of the signal itself. Some people want to use it as a bridge. That is all great, but you have to make it relevant. Yes, you saw my post. I posted about X, Y, and Z. How is that relevant to your offering? Like that's another copy mistake that people are making typically over email based on what I've seen. So don't overdo it. A signal will tell you in which position, in signal will essentially give you the relevance. It doesn't always have to give you the reason to reach out to
The
or
copy.
mention that signal
Yeah.
inside of the copy itself. The best emails that I receive are, hey, you're working in a fast-paced environment, you probably face problem X, Y, and Z. Does it make sense to tell you what I have? That's it. Like they've used the relevance, they've seen that we are fast-pacing and scaling, and now they are assuming that we have a specific set of problems that they can potentially help us solve. So that part is all great. Bill will tell us more again about the combination between LinkedIn email and the multiple touch points. And in the next 10 minutes, I want to be very short and I'm going to showcase you a very simple campaign and why it's working in terms of how to LinkedIn. Because let's be honest, let's focus now on the signals that will yield, let's say, predominantly up to 1,000 results per month. And over time, you will know which signals will give you that amount of results and obviously how to effectively use that. LinkedIn, in a sense, is not a communication channel. It's not email, it's not cold calling, so don't treat it like so. It's a social platform which has a communication channel attached to it, meaning you have to respect the social element between the interaction of two LinkedIn profiles between each other and then translate that inside of a message that goes in line with your outbound. So first things first, what you need to know. First, do I evaluation internally, how many LinkedIn accounts do I have to use? Let's say you have 5. If I have 5 LinkedIn accounts that I can use, multiply that by 600 because that's the LinkedIn limitation in terms of how many connection requests you can send out on a monthly basis. So 5 multiplied by 600, you're looking at 3,000. When LinkedIn is predominantly used when you want to leave a personal touch to it, right? It doesn't make sense to obviously send them a LinkedIn DM to a signal that gave you that company is hiring because they are hiring. What's the relevancy? If there is a link, that's the inbound/outbound type of motion. There is a website visit, there is but then again, clear filtering. There is, for instance, social engagement happening, LinkedIn posting, or even ads. People interact with ads daily, obviously. If you have that type of environment, that's your next step to push them from top of the funnel to middle of the funnel. And sometimes from middle of the funnel to bottom of the funnel, this is where you use the personal touch. LinkedIn is essentially, hey, this is who am I? I don't have anything to hide. There is no burner inbox or a burner domain behind of it. Check my work and check the problems that we solve. And that's your personal touch. So be strategic about it. Depending on how many accounts you have, focus on the most relevant signal that will give you closest from middle to bottom of the funnel and focus on those leads only. Now, if you are thinking, obviously, well, how should I approach them? Like, what's a LinkedIn campaign? Like, how does that thing essentially looks like? Stick with me. And by the way, shoot your questions if you have some about LinkedIn. Happy to answer those. So what you're seeing here is, whoops, I don't know who, you guys see my screen? Pretty much you see all of us. Cool, awesome. What's a LinkedIn campaign? A LinkedIn campaign is essentially an automated set of actions that your account will happen against the lead that you've pointed out, whether imported or through the API, regardless. But then again, like what guidelines should I follow? First touch point before a direct communication is always welcome. So if you are not connected with that person, obviously you would start with a follow. So they would get a notification that, let's say, Bill started following you. So you want that reserved spot. The second thing is obviously the connection request. If you're not connected with someone over LinkedIn, obviously you cannot message them. So that's why I typically say the connection request is the holy grail of the LinkedIn outbound. So make sure that you get accepted. Take time, be patient, it will happen. It's a slower game compared to all other channels, but it's going to yield more higher response rates. So just be aware of that. Now, one thing that you should not rush into, and everyone in the audience just thinking about blank connection request versus personalized. Guys, blank connection request outperforms a personalized one, so don't even bother. Stick to a blank connection request. That's the most natural way of working. Once you send the connection request, 2 things will happen. Either you will get accepted or not accepted. My best advice is do another profile engagement because you cannot message them 5 days later, still not accepted. Like one of the recent posts, get another notification. So you are in this game for the notification. So basically, Bill is going to pop up on my notification tab several times throughout the week. And that's where you want to be. Now, when the acceptance
I think this should not
happens,
emphasize that's crazy. Sorry to interrupt, but that's crazy. Like this is a notifications game. because most
Oh, yeah.
people think LinkedIn is about the DMs or the connection request message. But I think what you just explained here is like mind-blowing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the notifications are essentially turning your touch points into notifications. That's the whole game of LinkedIn. That's what the most successful campaigns actually look like. So play around with the notifications. Don't view them like you don't care what type of content you're liking, unless you do, and you have a very strict policy about that. I don't. I basically need pipeline. So that's why I'm going to like what everything that has to can be liked out there. So that's how the story goes. Once they accept the connection request, this is the message that you cross-reference like, hey, thank you for checking out our website. This is where the signal is guiding your copy. So if you find them on the pricing page, it goes, hey, thank you for checking the pricing page. Anything specifically you're looking for? That's a great message. You don't need AI personalization. You don't need research. You know where they were. You know what they did. So the question is, do you want to connect them so I can explain a bunch of things? And obviously, LinkedIn gives that chat experience where people feel freely to talk with a friend. So don't push this always into a funnel. Let's have a meeting, let's have a meeting, let's have a meeting. Because people essentially only want to have a chat. And that's where you want to be, because the next time you're having a meeting, you already have a so warmed up and nicely informed prospect that the closure is about to happen, unless you just do a terrible job on a demo meeting, which I'm guessing like you won't. but yeah, don't ruin the opportunity. Take your time and be aware of another problem. LinkedIn will generate so many replies that you have to stay on top of the inbox. I don't really want to pitch my product and to be biased, but if you're managing multiple accounts for a client or within a company, we do offer that unified inbox that gives you one centralized view without really accessing the profile. So results will come. Stay on top, be conversational, be friendly, and build out the copy based on the signal of where you have found them and why you have reached them over here. Notifications are just there to help you boost the acceptance and the reply rate. That's all I had to say.
Super powerful. And I've been one, and especially like I took two things. The first one is three, maybe. The first one is how important it is to have an optimized profile, because if you're aiming for notifications and letting people know that you exist, it means your LinkedIn profile needs to be up to date. The second one is notifications, 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 developers, developers, developers. And the last one is there is a delay between the connection request being accepted and being able to start reaching out to someone. And this is something that whenever we run campaigns in parallel, email and LinkedIn to the same audience or similar ICP, we're always really aware about that. Results from LinkedIn, even though they might be higher overall, like for the same number of prospects, LinkedIn in general should give you more replies. It'll take longer to start generating simply because the channels are different.
To everyone in the audience, just to have a perception, because we do have a lot of data to analyze, the average acceptance time on a connection request is 2.8 days. So whatever it is that you do, statistically speaking, they will not see and accept the connection request. Take your time. This is not something that you were invited, or this is not a direct inbox such as email that you should expect an immediate response. Things will happen, but once you start doing that and the whole cycle actually forms around this, it will be an evergreen campaign that will be always there. But either way, to be aware of time, we have 8 more minutes left. And by the way, whoever wants to stick around for a couple of extra minutes, this took a little bit more than expected for the Q&A session. Yeah. Long story before you jump in, Bill, long story short, one channel these days has proven to be not as good as having multiple channels running at the same time. And this is what Bill is obviously going to tell us about a little bit.
Yeah, so I aim to give a few examples and maybe touch a little bit more on how to actually implement that. Because also the other thing to keep in mind is like we're talking about, like, so you do LinkedIn or email. I'll give you actual examples. Glass Genius, company that sells to wellness businesses in the US. No wellness businesses ever on LinkedIn. Amazing. But they have a team of BDs. So it was really obvious that we did email and phone. Amazing results, obviously signal-led. I'm not going to analyze. Cybersecurity company targeting big clients in the UK. Their cybersecurity and CTO departments, so and development and technology departments. Have you ever heard of a technology department picking up the phone? No. these people are active on email, although a little bit cautious, but they're also on LinkedIn. Amazing. So easy kind of pick. Another one, recruitment company. Where does every recruiter live? On LinkedIn. So LinkedIn became the default channel for that campaign. We obviously used the email as well because we wanted to have volume and maximize the results. But like this one, starting from the signal, which was job listings, it killed it right out of the box. Another really good one, and this is something that we're running with Zen ABM and leveraging HeyReach in the mix as well, is companies who are running LinkedIn ads to really specific sets of companies, and then leverage the engagement data from LinkedIn ads, from those ads, to reach back into the companies that have engaged. Because this is a highly expensive and personalized type of campaign, you need to maximize your chances of getting a result. Obviously, you'll find them on LinkedIn. Obviously, you'll find them via email, and also calling, because it's not a really big audience, helps. And this is also how to think about it. Once you're able to scale emotion, and also if your market is broader, you typically need a lot more channels versus a market that's maybe a little bit smaller that you can get around with. Something else that, and I'm going to talk about the implementation part, something that troubles us, because we're in charge of hundreds of thousands of inboxes that have to be warmed up and operational every single month. Same for LinkedIn profiles as well, is how do we estimate how many inboxes we need per signal, per client, per campaign? So this is some really rough math that we do. Obviously, some signals will be bigger in terms of generating more prospects on a monthly basis. Some will be smaller. And you only have the actual estimate of how many people you're going to get per signal after month one of executing it. Like, so you can get an idea of what that looks like on a weekly basis, so you can have 4 weeks worth of data. So we typically start one signal with about 200 prospects budgeted per month. Whether we do email or LinkedIn depends on the type of signal. If it's someone interacting with our product or someone's CRM, it's calling and then LinkedIn. Or if it's an active client, calling them directly. If it's more broad signals, it's typically email because it's higher volume. And then 5 signals, as an example, was like roughly speaking 1,000 prospects that we budget different inboxes for every single month. Another really kind of awesome thing, and this goes back to what I said before, the B2B data renaissance, and literally that data is a whole creative game when it comes to B2B, is you can now build your own signals. Like obviously everyone's going to use the built-in signals, company hiring for CMO, amazing. Company changed CEOs, like that we all have access to, but it becomes really impactful, especially if you're reaching out to broad audiences, because you have to have volume as part of your campaigns, and you're able to generate unique insights, target people who are part of communities, build custom data points. A cool example I have of that is a company that wanted to target bakeries that bake their own bread. And we literally scraped the photos from each bakery from Google Maps. And we used specific AI models that would analyze every image and try to detect if there was machines that are built for baking bread. This is something that doesn't exist. Like bakeries that bake their own bread, doesn't really exist as a data point anywhere. So being able to either scrape those lists or build super specific and custom data points that you can then leverage with unique messaging is amazing. Another one is don't reference signals in your outreach. I'm not ashamed at all that I'm going to amplify this. Maybe I'll hide the company, but the post was like, I saw you like the post from Bill Stathopoulos at Stathopoulos.io, like not even removing our domain, about using AI inside ChatGPT for GTM. It seems you're exploring ways to make outreach. And I'm like, and a friend messaged me and said, liking your posts became an outbound trigger. And I mean, it is a good trigger. It is a good signal. Someone interacting with this post means they care about whatever this company is selling. But you don't have to mention, oh, you did this, you follow Bill, you engage with Bill. Maybe what you can do instead, and this is something I've talked about quite a bit, is you can have a PS, you can have your whole email, PS or a LinkedIn message. If you haven't checked him out, because you're in the B2B space, Bill seems to have really cool content. Or I don't know if you've come across SalesCaptain or HeyReach. they've been really impactful for us. One last note there is, and this is the whole reason implementing or attempting to implement signals at SalesCaptain, I think 3 or 4 years ago failed, is we didn't test enough signals. Like, I can't really stress this enough. Obviously, step number 1 is what Ilija mentioned, like you have to talk to your clients and you have to, or your existing clients, to understand what it is that made them choose you or your clients' clients if you're at an agency. You have to have those actual insights, but you also have to test. The list on the right, and you can get the slides and you can zoom in, is literally the first 10 signals that we built for SalesCaptain, 10 or 12 signals. Literally, those signals outperformed generic new go-to-market type of campaigns 5 to 1. Like, we got 5 times as many positive replies when leveraging signals stacked on top of each other. Some signals worked, some didn't, some worked better, some didn't work at all. So testing and experimenting, same as you would test different messaging with different types of signals, different types of intent, is the name of the game. And if we have last time, I'll leave you with kind of like one last thing. Not all signals and channels are created equal, and I think we touched on that with Ilija. A really important question that we get is, how are we able to orchestrate all the signals that we get in order to identify, okay, a really important company, a really big company, took really specific or warm activities on our website or our CRM, it's worth reaching out. There is a platform called Clay that allows you to do that in pretty much 3 steps. Having an account fit score, scoring every single company you come across, then scoring the different signals, and you can have top of funnel signals, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, with bottom of funnel being the warmest ones, and then assigning a potential, like an estimated contract value, potential contract value, and then prioritizing the companies that are higher ICP fit, higher impact or warmer activities with the higher potential contract value. When we implemented it, and this is an actual case study for the company I mentioned before, it literally changed the way we do things. Implementation is not as tricky as it seems. This is me nerding out and building out a graph. You pretty much have your signals. You feed everything inside of Clay. You kind of isolate the domain of the company so you can identify the company. You score that based on if it's an industry you like, if it's a big company, small company, signals, etc. And then you act on your data using HeyReach, Lemlist, email, your CRM, etc. And I think this is, to kind of end things and put it in perspective, this is where go-to-market is going to be in 2026, hopefully by the end of the year, because signals have become a main part of the game. And as we discussed, it's leveraging the signals, it's funneling prospects to the marketing team or the sales team or the growth team, sending a specific audience that interacts with you to a LinkedIn ads funnel versus sending them to your BD team to cold call or to your AEs to actually call. This is where companies are really going to be making a difference. It's, yes, we can leverage signals, we can orchestrate them, we now have the channels and we know how to use the channels, and we have the best channels possible using HeyReach, Zapmail, etc. The biggest question is, how can we orchestrate that? So you can go back to kind of the actual promise I said in the beginning. It's like, if you have signal-led, orchestrated go-to-market, this is literally the way to go in 2026. My biggest question is, are you getting on board or not? And this is an image I put together in ChatGPT for something else completely different we were doing at SalesCaptain, and I thought it was a really, really good moment to put it there. So there you have it.
Morpheus sunglasses look good on you. That's all I have to say. Guys, like, we've did a lot of talking over here, and obviously I'm hoping that we've provided some value. You know essentially where to find us in terms of, like, sure, go and do this on your own. If needed, you know where to find us, ask for some help, but essentially start doing it now. With that, I think that we can draw this to conclusion and obviously go to the Q&A section. We're going to do a short rapid fire to cover as much questions as we can. So I'm going to obviously answer it. Oops, not like that. Answer it live. Hey, I'm a one-man sales team. I believe like this is, I guess, Bill, this one is for you. Obviously, he has a solution in place that he wants to offer to real estate assets, retail, and so on and so forth. What are the top 3 signals that you would use, and if you were me, and how would you approach this market?
Proprietary patented computer vision platform that uses CCTV. Give me some time to read through it. Maybe go to another one. I'll take some time brainstorming on this one, so I don't just mumble.
Sure. No worries. Okay. Cool.
And let's make it actionable.
Actually, let's make it actionable. Have you heard of Lead Sniper? Any of you? I haven't. I don't know.
Yep.
Nope. Okay, cool. And then the next question is it better than the ones listed on the presentation? Bill?
Oh, sorry. What was the question?
Is Lead Sniper better than the ones that you have presented when it comes to signals?
So I wouldn't say there's a good or bad platform when it comes to signals. We've used from anything from Godzilla to Trigify. What matters, honestly, is are you able to leverage it? Again, I haven't found like one platform that's like better in a material way. All the platforms would have a similar type of signals. And also there's platforms that have really specific type of signals. Like there's a different client that we worked with that they cared about companies that had really high M&A activity. And there's a specific data provider called, I keep forgetting the name, that we had to integrate with Prekin. Prekin has an API that we had to integrate with Clay because all we cared about was high M&A activity. There was no other intense signal or data provider. So a lot of times it doesn't really matter. It's a matter of pricing, and if you can get a cheap one, go for it, because the data is going to be the same. And as long as the results are there, that's what I want to emphasize. Because as you mentioned earlier as well, like a lot of people are talking like, oh, signals. If you're not making an ROI, don't use it. If you can't get it to get an ROI, maybe work with someone who can help you do that. But don't spend your money on things just because someone said, oh, this is going to make you money, and continue throwing money.
Leave the shiny objects aside. Use it when needed. Don't use it. We don't need it, and don't have a strict and firm attitude towards anything really. Cool. Yeah. Marco's up next. How would you prepare ourselves for 2026 AI filters that are probably going to be out there by Google? Kaustubh, this is your.
Yeah. So if you look at the formal announcement which has come from Google, it's more towards segregation of mailboxes, AI labels, something which Superhuman and all these tools have been doing for the longest time. One good thing here is that, which is what we have noticed, Google sort of has a persona for each mailbox. I mean, if someone sends me an email regarding Zapmail, 99 out of 100 times it will land in my inbox. So if you're reaching out to the right person for whom the messaging is relevant, I don't think this should be a concern. If someone sends me a message today that, are you looking for plumber services? Definitely it'll end up in my spam folder. Same goes for Ilija and Bill as well. If someone messages Ilija related to LinkedIn, I think most of the times it'll end up in inbox because the messaging is relevant and Google has some sort of persona built for Ilija by now. So fingers crossed. Exactly. I don't think there has been.
There is good and every bad, the way I see it. I mean, Google will be your signal validator filtering. If your inbox are not hitting, then obviously pretty much you have not relevant audience to begin with. So it's not that terrible, really. But if you have the right audience, you will end up in primary either way. So why should you worry? Worry about finding the most relevant audience. Thank you. Okay, moving on.
I have a really good answer to Sam's question, and it actually touches on a couple of things. The first one is, to kind of reiterate, they're selling a patented computer vision platform that uses CCTV to measure how spaces are used. So they're going after, facilities of any kind, retail, office, gyms. There's a really good point that there's no intense signal that seems to exist. 100% makes sense. Maybe one signal could be if these companies are opening multiple spaces or not, so how fast they're expanding. That's one thing. Another one is there's often cases where there's no intense signal. I think that's a good thing. What you can do instead is use AI in a smart way to produce a unique insight for those businesses. So for example, something that I know we've experimented with for a client that was in a slightly similar situation targeting local businesses is we would use Google Maps data to try and estimate what's the square footage of the space that you're trying to cover. And then maybe in your case, you can let them know what the cost would be to install versus running it manually. So if you're targeting gyms, they probably have a certain square footage. You can find them on Google Maps and say, hey, I saw your gym, or you can pull data that exists on different properties, and you can say, hey, if your gym is this big, you need 20 cameras at least. This is what you're going to see. This is what we saw when we installed it at a gym next door. The other thing is you obviously need volume, and also those people probably aren't on LinkedIn, so you need email. So sign up on Zapmail. I would assume you need maybe 80% Google inboxes, the 10% to 20 Outlook and the customers MPP, most likely email. But that should be it. Like, email them with a specific insight tailor-made for them. Make every email unique because you have the data, or you can build the data that no one else has, and just do volume. If it's relevant, it'll make a lot of sense to them.
Sam, I don't know if you got the notes or just rewatch this because you've got a full GTM strategy in motion. Thank you for that. Cool. Moving along. Kishan says we have Zapmail, Instantly, Apollo, HeyReach, and Navigator. Which tools would you suggest for intent-based outreach? Again, I'm going to answer this one real quick because it's not every signal that should be proposed depends on what the campaign objective is. Sometimes it will be website visitors, other cases, people hiring. So there is no right or wrong on that one. A lot of testing though. Right now, our leads are spread across CSV files. Which tools would you suggest for outbound store? I mean, that's pretty straightforward. In my opinion, it really should be Clay. You don't have to do a lot of orchestration or integrations and stuff like that. You just use Clay for consolidation because all of these tools actually integrate with Clay. So that might make sense. If that doesn't make sense, get an Airtable, something that can connect through an API with multiple sources, and you should be done. Last question, which tool would you suggest we push leads straight into Instantly and HeyReach? That's why I'm mentioning Clay, because both of us actually have that native integration. Currently, we use HubSpot, but not for outbound, only for deal management. Of course, now you're mixing up two things now. Outbound essentially will be conducted through HeyReach and Instantly and Zapmail for the infra, but Clay will be essentially the orchestration layer. HubSpot,
and one
completely
really
different
cool
thing.
tool in that case would be Outbound Sync. So the data from the sending tools flow back inside of HubSpot. So you don't have to have HubSpot as an intermediary. Like the outreach can happen directly from Clay sent to Instantly, Smart Lead, HeyReach, etc. And then when you have the data from the campaigns, you push it inside of HubSpot. And that way you don't have, because the biggest kind of ugly thing with Outbound is you have a lot of data that doesn't really have use because people haven't responded. Like, you don't really need the data. It can live inside of Clay, but inside of your CRM, it's just cluttering things and maybe costing your seat costs increase. So you only want them when they have, intent.
HubSpot and Clay are a whole webinar on its own. Let's just leave it there, but yeah, cool. Okay, we're going with I'm building out lists for my client. Then how to know which signals to use? Again, depending on the client, depending on the objective, take from the list, pick on one or two that you feel reasonable to use, or ask the client like why he's closing deals to begin with, and focus on that. Cool. Moving on. The sending using subdomain isolates the reputation damage on the domain when doing cold outbound. Kaustubh, you can answer this one, but essentially subdomains should not be used, but separate domains altogether. Share your thoughts.
So if you're using subdomains, essentially the emails are being routed through the primary domain itself. So better to have secondary domains. Let's say if your primary domain is heyreach.io, go for get HeyReach, use HeyReach, my HeyReach, something on these lines. And that should do the job for you. If you're using subdomains, you're risking the primary domain's reputation, and it's a big no.
So no subdomains, separate domains that will be, obviously exposed to getting burned, essentially. Cool. Marco is going again, and we're going to wrap it up pretty nicely. What's the ratio of Google Outlook custom SMTP for the infra? Kaustubh, there is a specific ratio or no, nothing?
Again, this depends on the you can do a quick check of MX records based on your lead list. See if it's Google heavy or Microsoft heavy, and
the list will determine what the ratio should look like, essentially.
Grab the first 100 to 500 prospects randomly from your prospect list, put them inside of Clay. If they're not already there, check their DNS. It'll give you which email provider they use, Microsoft, Google, or other. Other is custom SMTP. Microsoft is Microsoft. Google is Google. Typically, we typically use Google or custom SMTP because they have the best deliverability overall, if we can afford it, in terms of not reaching out to enterprise. They reach out to a lot of big companies, like large retail companies. All of them are on Microsoft, so we can't really avoid having Outlook inboxes. So it has to do with your audience first. If you have no idea, you can definitely test it a little bit and then try to match it as well.
Also,
Nice.
there's one else thing which you can do here. You can go for the pre-warm mailboxes which we have on Zapmail. You can just buy a couple of domains on Google, couple of domains on Microsoft, run an experiment and see where you're getting better results, and then double down on that infrastructure.
Again, testing, proving concept, moving along. Guys, I'm going to wrap this up, even though we do have a bunch of questions open, but we are like 13 minutes over the top. We have your answers, and I'm going to split it between us so people can answer it over LinkedIn or email, and we will follow up. I would like to thank everyone joining us today. Bill, Kaustubh, it was a real honor. Thank you for sharing so much value. We went like 13 minutes over the top, but I believe like people enjoy that. Thank you all for coming. Any final words, lads?
Thank you for hosting us, both of you, and Kaustubh as well. Thank you for joining.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ilija. I hope this was helpful for the audience. And if you guys need anything, feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn or email or whatever channel you guys seem good. And
works best. Absolutely. Thank you all, and see you next time.
Awesome.
Thank
Bye
you.
for now. Thank you, guys.